start with a huge round of applause for Arnold Zabel, who is true a national treasure of this country. Thank you, Sarah. Gideon, that was magical. I'm very proud to be standing here in solidarity with the Jewish Labour Bund and Jewish Aid, extraordinary beacons of hope and compassion in this community. I'd like to start by paying my respects to the traditional custodians of the land of Wurundjeri people, and to extend my respects to elders, both past and present, of the Kulin Nation. So, you're going to tell me when to stop, because I have nothing scripted, so I have no idea of sense of time. Just hit me or wave at me or something. So, throw the bottle at me. Okay, so tonight the theme is around towards a humane approach, solution, way forward when it comes to asylum seekers. And one of the things in our space is we're always talking about the horror. I'm going to start with the horror. There's no way of escaping the horror of what's going on. But I'm going to dedicate the majority of my talk tonight to solutions, to what my organisation and I are doing to try to find a solution, and how we together can find solutions, and what that looks like. Because I think that's the really exciting thing, is to know that all hope is not lost. But of course we need to start with where are we at as a country. Today across Australia, thousands upon thousands of people marched for Palm Sunday refugee rallies. And what brought people together was what is resonating deeply within this country, which is we're sitting there and looking at both sides of the political fence and are seeing a government and an opposition that represent the worst in us as Australians. A government that sits there and tries to nurture bigotry, fear, racism, intolerance. It's extraordinary to be at a time where we have a government that is sitting there and trying to make it lawful to again deny the existence of the Holocaust. It's extraordinary to have a Human Rights Commissioner get up there and say, I feel discriminated against as a white person that I can't use the N-word like black people do. It's extraordinary to have an Attorney General come out and say, people have a right to be bigots. It's extraordinary to think there are 1,138 children locked up in detention centres across Australia as we speak. Although yesterday, 20 parents with their children 2 years and under were sent to Nauru. It's extraordinary when you actually dig deeper behind even what's reported in the media and the horror of what I've been hearing since then. Stuff that's actually too terrible to put out in print because you're just concerned about the trauma it causes to asylum seekers who read it and see it. But I recently was informed about how in one detention centre, a woman who tried to hang herself did so while pregnant. And to think we've reached a point where pregnant women in detention are trying to hang themselves, that up until last month, and the latest figures were some 80 such women in detention, 25 newborn babies. We have a government that recently was celebrating 100 days with no boats, it was boasting. And I sat and I thought, we have 100 days of barbarism. We have 100 days of cruelty. We have 100 days of breaching every single international human rights convention that we're a signatory to. We have 100 days of turning back boats and sending people back to danger. Our policy mantra is a very simple one, which is just die somewhere else. That's all it's about. The myth of saving lives is shown bare by the fact that this government has cut the refugee intake by 31%. The myth that it's about saving lives is shown by the fact that this government has frozen the processing of all refugee claims for this entire nation, whether you came by boat or by plane. This government has shown what bullshit it is when it talks about families and saving lives and protecting children, when it's actually now said to unaccompanied children who are permanent residents of this country, you will never be reunited with your family unless you take out your citizenship, which takes years to get to that point. That we have a lost generation right here. You know, we have the horrors of what's happening in detention on a daily basis of watching people disintegrate and be destroyed. The fact that under our care a refugee could be murdered, under our care, under our watch, should have been enough to bring down a government. And what was terrifying is it wasn't a crisis for this government. It was an opportunity. It was actually an opportunity. This was an upside. It was about, here's an even better way of being able to send a message that this is what happens to you if you're a refugee that seeks our protection. You know, we have a 3-star general, military, you will not be settled in Australia ever. The only country in the world that has offshore processing, the only country in the world that uses its military to terrorize refugees, the only country in the world that indefinitely detains children. And I look at what's happening in the community. Over 20,000 people forbidden from working because they know the most critical things you need to thrive, to succeed. The most critical things to settlement. Opportunity to participate and contribute, opportunity to provide for your family, a sense of welcome, a sense of place, a sense of belonging. So what has our government introduced? It's introduced a code of behaviour which allows them, if they wish to send an asylum seeker to Nauru or to Manus Island on the basis of doing any of the following. And none of this is embellishment. Spreading rumours at work, excluding someone from a situation, spitting, or swearing in public. I swear a lot, I would be locked up a long time ago. Spitting and swearing in public. Living in an overcrowded home and making too much noise. Spreading rumours at work is enough to get you sent to Manus Island or Nauru. A parking fine is enough to get you locked up indefinitely in detention. This government is actually trying to create a police state. Strip away the Racial Discrimination Act, criminalise asylum seekers despite the fact that they are 45 times less likely to be charged with a criminal offence than the general Australian public. And hide the idea that these people in fact are refugees. From Bob Carr to Tony Abbott to Scott Morrison sitting there and saying these people are economic migrants. Sit there and say they're economic migrants, but process no one on Manus Island. On Manus Island, where in 15 months they spent $1 billion to process no one. On Manus Island, where in the biggest compound there, the men are given only 500 millilitres of water a day. Where the doctors recommend 4 litres. Where many don't even have shoes, where their feet burn from the hot soil. Or we could talk about Christmas Island. That report that was written by 15 doctors to Scott Morrison in outrage at what was happening, asking the minister, why when these people turn up off the boat covered in their own feces, won't you let them wash before we examine them? Why do you take away all their medicines and destroy them and destroy their medical records? Why, when people are turned up as amputees, do you take from them their prosthetic legs? Why do you take the hearing aids and the vision aids of children? Why do you allow a profoundly disabled 4-year-old wheelchair-bound little girl from Sri Lanka to be kept there? Why did you leave a baby with a defective pacemaker there for 2 months? Why, when pregnant women need to actually get examined, there are no facilities or technology to do so? Then when one woman miscarried, she was told, you just need to learn to lower your expectations. What would you call this? What would you call this? Call this torture. Detention is built for the purpose of torturing and destroying people. But it's not just happening behind barbed wire fences, it's happening in the